Hey there, curious minds. Welcome to this intellectual journey. Have you ever wondered why superhero stories or grand fantasy sagas captivate us so deeply? The answer is older and more profound than you might imagine, hidden within humanity's very first great narratives. A narrative that, without you even realizing it, still steers much of your life. Today, we're not just talking about simple fairy tales. We're going to decode myth, not as a lie or a fantasy, but as the original operating system of human consciousness, our species' first attempt to make sense of a chaotic and terrifying universe. Prepare to discover a language we all understand, even if we've forgotten how to speak it. Think about it for a moment. Why did different cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, tell astonishingly similar stories about the creation of the world, about a great flood, or about a hero who journeys to the underworld and returns? It's no coincidence. It's proof that we share a mental map, a universal narrative structure. Before we dive in, I wanted to tell you a little about the visuals you're seeing. To bring this narration to life, I've used artificial intelligence tools. So think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and the atmosphere of what I'm telling you. They won't always be an exact or literal representation, but a visual accompaniment to let your imagination soar with me. I sincerely hope you enjoy it. First, let's clarify what a myth actually is. In our culture, the word myth is often used synonymously with lie, but for ancient civilizations, myth was the deepest truth. It was their science, their philosophy, and their religion all rolled into one. It was the only tool they had to answer the biggest questions, like where we come from and where we're going. The first major function of myth, therefore, is cosmological. It attempts to explain the universe and our place within it. Myths like the Hebrew Genesis or the Babylonian Enuma Elish narrate the transition from chaos to order. They tell us how the sun, moon, stars, and eventually humanity were created. They provided a sense of coherence to a world that seemed utterly unpredictable. Imagine not knowing why it rains or why the sun rises every morning. Myths personified these forces. The sun was a god in a fiery chariot. The storm was the wrath of another. These stories not only explained natural phenomena, but also made them understandable and, to some extent, manageable through rituals and offerings. The second key function is social. Myth establishes the moral order and rules of a community. It justifies why kings should rule, why certain laws exist, or why specific festivals must be celebrated. Myth was the unwritten constitution of ancient societies, the glue that held the tribe or city together. For example, the myth of Romulus and Remus, suckled by a she-wolf, not only recounts the origin of Rome, but also imbues Romans with the idea that they are a people destined for greatness, with a divine connection and a fierce, resilient nature. Myth becomes a powerful tool for collective identity and political propaganda. The third function, and perhaps the most personal for us today, is psychological. Myths provide us with a map for navigating life's stages: birth, the passage to adulthood, marriage, old age, and death. All these transitions are marked by stories that teach us how to face crises and find meaning in our existence. The famous mythologist Joseph Campbell called this pattern the hero's journey. It's a narrative formula we find in almost every myth worldwide. An ordinary individual receives a call to adventure, faces trials and tribulations, and eventually returns home transformed with a gift or wisdom to share with their community. This pattern isn't just in ancient myths. Think of Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, or Frodo Baggins. They all follow the same stages as Gilgamesh or Odysseus. This structure resonates with us because it reflects our own psychological journey of growth and self-discovery. It's a story we all live, whether on a small or grand scale. Now let's delve deeper into the characters of these stories. The psychologist Carl Jung proposed that we not only share a narrative structure, but also a cast of universal characters. He called them archetypes. These are patterns of behavior and personality that reside in what he termed the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious, to put it simply, would be like a shared database for all humanity. A psychological inheritance containing the accumulated experiences and symbols of our ancestors. Archetypes are the main characters inhabiting that database. Let's meet some of these universal characters. Recognizing them is like getting a key to understand almost any story that has ever been told or ever will be told. You'll find these faces incredibly familiar. The first and most obvious is the hero. This is the archetype of action, the one who confronts darkness and overcomes obstacles. Think of Heracles and his 12 labors, or King Arthur pulling the sword from the stone. The hero represents our desire for competence, to overcome our limitations and to make the world a better place. Today, this archetype is more alive than ever. Superman, Captain Marvel, or even more complex characters like Batman are modern incarnations of the hero. They inspire us because they embody the struggle against adversity that we all face in our lives, even if our battles are less spectacular. Then we have the mentor or the wise old man woman. This is the figure who guides and trains the hero. They are the source of wisdom and knowledge. Think of Merlin for King Arthur, Odin for Thor, or Chiron, the centaur who trained so many Greek heroes. This archetype represents the accumulated wisdom of culture. In modern stories, the mentor is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Albus Dumbledore, or Mr. Miyagi. They teach us that the hero's journey cannot be walked alone. We need the guidance of those who have already trodden that path. It represents our need to learn and to find a purpose beyond ourselves. Now, a much more ambiguous and fascinating character, the trickster. This is an agent of chaos, a joker who breaks the rules and defies authority. Loki in Norse mythology, Anansi the spider in Africa, or Coyote in Native American legends. They aren't purely evil, but their function is to shake up the established order. The trickster is crucial for change and innovation. By breaking norms, they open the door to new possibilities. Think about it, characters like Jack Sparrow or the Joker, in his most chaotic version, embody this archetype. They fascinate us because they represent our own hidden impulse for freedom and for challenging a world that sometimes feels too rigid. Also, there's the archetype of the shadow. It represents everything we repress and don't want to accept about ourselves. The darkness, the anger, the fear. In myths, it's the dragon the hero must slay, the monster in the labyrinth, the envious sibling. It's the primary antagonist, but with an important nuance. The shadow isn't simply external evil. According to Jung, it's a part of us. The true triumph of the hero isn't to destroy the shadow, but to confront and integrate it. Darth Vader is the perfect example. He is Luke's shadow, but also his father. The struggle is internal. By acknowledging our own darkness, we become whole. And of course, we have the feminine archetypes, like the Great Mother. She is the symbol of nature, creation, fertility, and sustenance. Gaia in Greece, Pachamama in the Andes, or Isis in Egypt. She is the origin of all life. She represents the nurturing and protective aspect of the universe, but also its destructive power, like a storm or an earthquake. In popular culture, the Great Mother appears as Mother Nature or in characters embodying wisdom and unconditional protection, like Grandma Tala in Moana or Galadriel in The Lord of the Rings. This archetype connects with our most basic need for security, belonging, and care. These are just a few examples. Many other archetypes exist, such as the innocent, the rebel, the lover, or the ruler. What's truly astonishing is how these patterns repeat themselves again and again, not just in fiction, but in how we understand people in real life. We label people according to these roles. Now, for the ultimate proof of this universality, let's look at how the same stories with the same archetypes emerged in cultures that, in theory, never had contact. This suggests that the stories didn't travel from one place to another, but rather sprang independently from the same source, the human psyche. Take the myth of the Great Flood. The most famous story is Noah's Ark in the Bible. A god, angry with humanity, decides to flood the world, but warns a righteous man to build an ark to save his family and animals. It's a story we all know. But long before the Bible was written, in Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh told the story of Utnapishtim. The gods decide to destroy humanity with a flood, and the god Ea warns Utnapishtim to build a boat and save his family and living creatures. The parallels are astounding, and it doesn't stop there. In Hindu mythology, the sage Manu is warned by the god Vishnu in his fish avatar about an imminent flood. He instructs him to build a great boat and save the seeds of all life. The same structure, the same message on a completely different continent. Even in the Americas, the myths of the Aztecs, Mayans, and other native cultures speak of previous worlds destroyed by water. How is this possible? The most probable explanation isn't a global historical event, but a psychological resonance. Water as a symbol of primordial chaos and purification is an archetype in itself. Another fascinating example is the myth of creation from chaos. In Greek mythology, at first, there was only chaos, a primordial void. From it emerged Gaia, Earth, Eros, love, and other primordial entities that began to shape the universe. Order is born from unformed nothingness. In ancient Egypt, before creation, there was only a dark, infinite ocean called Nun. From these primordial waters, the first hill of land emerged, and upon it, the creator god Atum manifested and began the work of creation. Again, the same idea, order emerging from watery chaos. In Norse mythology, at first there existed an empty abyss called Ginnungagap, flanked by a world of fire and a world of ice. When fire and ice met in the abyss, their interaction gave birth to the first being, the giant Ymir, from whose body the world would be created, an identical pattern with different elements. This global repetition of themes and characters isn't just a simple literary curiosity. It's a window into the fundamental structure of the human mind. It tells us that despite our superficial differences in language and culture, we all operate with the same basic narrative software. We are, in essence, storytelling animals who tell stories to survive. And here we arrive at the most important point, the twist that connects everything to you right now. These myths aren't just ancient stories about gods and monsters. They are mirrors. They are how our mind understands itself. The struggles of the gods in the sky are a dramatization of the struggles happening within our own psyche. The hero's journey isn't just for Odysseus or Katniss Everdeen. It's your journey every time you face a new challenge, leaving home for college, starting a new job, overcoming an illness or a breakup. Each of these experiences follows, at its core, the mythical pattern of the call, the trial, and the transformed return. When you feel like you're fighting your inner demons, you're participating in the same archetypal combat as the hero fighting the dragon. That dragon could be your procrastination, your anxiety, your fear of failure. Myth gives you a language to understand and confront that internal struggle so you don't feel alone in it. The gods of mythology, with their passions, jealousies, wrath, and love, are nothing more than projections of the forces swirling within us. Zeus, with his power and lust, represents the archetype of the dominant father. Hera, with her jealousy, the struggle for status, and the protection of the home. They are facets of the human experience elevated to a cosmic scale. Understanding this is liberating. It means your personal struggles aren't just yours. They are part of a much larger story, the story of humanity. There's ancient wisdom codified in these myths that can guide you. They teach you that chaos precedes creation, that falling is necessary for rebirth, and that treasures are found in the darkness. So the next time you watch a movie, read a book, or even listen to the news, try to look beyond the surface. Search for the archetypes. Who is the hero? Who is the mentor? What is the shadow? You'll see that these templates are everywhere, from political speeches to advertisements. Myths are the DNA of narrative. They are the reason certain stories move us to tears and others fill us with inspiration. It's not because of special effects or clever dialogue. It's because they strike these deep ancient chords within us. We recognize on an unconscious level the universal truth they contain. We've lost touch with our myths. We live in an era that prioritizes reason and science, which is fantastic. But by dismissing myth as mere superstition, we've lost a powerful language for discussing the soul, purpose, and meaning. We've left a void that we try to fill with other things. Consumerism, celebrity worship, extreme political ideologies. Many of these things function as substitute myths. They try to give us a sense of belonging, a story to believe in, a villain to hate, and a paradise to reach. But often they are impoverished myths that manipulate us instead of liberating us. Reconnecting with the great universal myths is a way to reclaim our psychological sovereignty. They provide us with richer, deeper, and more human narratives to understand our place in the world. They remind us that we are part of something much grander and older than the fleeting trends of our time. Let's consider the myth of Prometheus, the titan who stole fire from the gods to give it to humanity and was punished for it. This isn't just a story about the origin of fire. It's a meditation on knowledge, progress, sacrifice, and rebellion against tyrannical authority. It's the story of every scientist, artist, or revolutionary. Or the myth of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun and whose wax wings melted. It's an eternal warning about hubris, about the danger of unchecked ambition. It's a lesson that resonates today in the world of technology and finance, where we often fly too high and too fast, forgetting our human limitations. The myth of Sisyphus, condemned to push a boulder uphill for all eternity, only for it to roll back down just before reaching the top. The philosopher Albert Camus saw in this myth the symbol of the human condition, of our constant struggle in an indifferent universe. But he concluded that we must imagine Sisyphus happy, finding meaning in the struggle itself. And the myth of Persephone, abducted to the underworld, whose return to Earth brings spring. It's the mythical explanation of the seasons, yes. But on a deeper level, it's a story about loss, grief, and the cyclical promise of renewal. It teaches us that after every winter, personal or literal, life can bloom again. These stories are inexhaustible. Each generation can reread them and find new meanings relevant to their own challenges. They aren't fixed answers. They are open questions. They are tools for thinking about the deepest dilemmas of existence. They are, in the best sense, humanity's first great conversation with itself. The next time you face a difficult decision, think of the hero at the crossroads. When you feel the world is against you, think of the journey through the underworld. When you achieve something important, remember the hero who returns with the elixir for their community. Using this language gives you perspective and connects you to the shared experience of being human. Myth, in short, is not a relic of the past. It's an operating system that continues to run in the background of our minds. controls how we structure time, how we understand success and failure, and how we relate to others through archetypal roles. It is the source code of our civilization. Ignoring this code is like trying to use a computer without knowing anything about its operating system. You can do basic things, but you'll never understand why it works the way it does, and you'll be vulnerable to its viruses, that is, to manipulative narratives that hijack this structure for their own purposes. Knowing it, on the other hand, empowers you. It allows you to rewrite parts of your own story. If you feel trapped in the role of the victim, you can learn to activate the hero archetype within you. If chaos overwhelms you, you can seek the inner sage who finds order. You become an active participant in your own personal myth. Literature, cinema, art, and modern psychological therapy, especially Jungian, all serve to remind us of these eternal truths. They help us reconnect with this symbolic language that our rationalist culture has tried to suppress. They are the bridge back to the world of myth. Thus, the study of mythology is not a hobby for scholars or fantasy enthusiasts. It is one of the most practical and relevant disciplines that exist. It is the study of humanity's instruction manual. Understanding myths is ultimately beginning to understand yourself in a deeper and more compassionate way. It teaches us that life is not a straight line of progress, but a cycle of death and rebirth, that every end is the prelude to a new beginning. This wisdom, so present in myths worldwide, is a powerful antidote to despair in difficult times. It gives us a long-term perspective. It also reminds us that we are dual beings. We contain both light and darkness, order and chaos, the divine and the monstrous. The goal isn't to eliminate one part, but to maintain them in a dynamic balance. The pantheons of gods, with their alliances and conflicts, are a map of this internal complexity. So do ancient myths control your life? Yes, but not like an inevitable destiny to which you are chained. They do so as gravity does, as a fundamental force that shapes your trajectory. You can fight against it, or you can learn to use it to fly higher. The choice is yours. The next time you feel a deep connection with a fictional character, ask yourself what archetype it's activating within you. The next time you feel lost, look for the map in the stories humanity has told itself since the beginning of time. The code is there, waiting to be read. This journey through myth has only just begun. We've merely scratched the surface of a universe of wisdom that spans all cultures and all epochs. It's a legacy that belongs to all of us, an inheritance we carry in our narrative blood. It's the story of who we are, told in 1,000 different tongues. Think about it. Every culture has looked at the same night sky and seen different figures, different heroes and monsters. But the stories they told about those stars, stories of love, betrayal, sacrifice, and courage, are surprisingly the same. The stars are the canvas, but the paint comes from the human heart. In the Greek pantheon, the gods are imperfect, almost too human. Their whims and passions pull the strings of mortal destiny. This teaches us about the arbitrary nature of power and how the flaws of the powerful can have devastating consequences for everyone. In contrast, in Egyptian mythology, the concept of Ma'at, cosmic order, truth, and justice, is central. Gods and pharaohs have the responsibility to maintain this balance. It's a worldview that emphasizes stability, social order, and the ruler's accountability. Norse mythology, on the other hand, is imbued with a sense of fate and an inevitable end, Ragnarok. Even the gods are not immortal and must face their own destruction. This worldview values courage in the face of certain defeat, the glory of fighting for a lost cause. It's a mythology for a harsh climate and land. In the mythologies of India, such as the Mahabharata or the Ramayana, the concepts of dharma, duty, moral order, and karma, the law of cause and effect, are fundamental. The stories are incredibly complex, exploring the nuances of good and evil and how an individual's actions affect the entire cosmos across many lifetimes. In Japan, Shintoism presents a pantheon of kami, who are not so much gods as spirits inhabiting nature, in trees, rocks, rivers. It's a worldview that sees the sacred everywhere and promotes a deep reverence for the natural world. Myth and nature are inextricably linked. The dreaming stories of the Australian Aboriginal people are a literal and spiritual map of the territory. Every hill, every waterhole was created by ancestral beings on their journeys. Myth is geography, and geography is myth. Singing the story of a place is a way to navigate it and keep it alive. And in the Americas, Mayan and Aztec mythologies tell us of cycles of creation and destruction, of gods who demand sacrifices to keep the sun moving. It's a worldview where existence is precarious and requires human intervention to maintain cosmic order. There's an urgency and a blood debt to the gods. Each of these worldviews is a unique response to the same universal challenges. Each culture developed an operating myth that allowed it to survive and thrive in its particular environment. Myth is our species' cultural survival strategy, expressed in story form. What's fascinating is that despite these differences, the underlying archetypes remain. All cultures have a hero who overcomes adversity. All have a trickster who breaks the rules. All have a great mother figure who nurtures life. The names and costumes change, but the roles in the great human drama are the same. Today we live in a globalized world where all these myths coexist and intertwine. Hollywood cinema borrows elements from Buddhism. Japanese anime reinterprets Norse mythology. We are in an era of mythical syncretism, creating new stories from the pieces of the old. This process can be confusing, but it is also incredibly enriching. It gives us access to an unprecedented library of human wisdom. We can learn from the stoic courage of the Norse, the reverence for nature of Shintoism, and the complex sense of duty of Hinduism. We can build a richer and more diverse personal myth, because in the end, that's what it's all about. Finding or creating a story that gives meaning and purpose to your life. A story that helps you be brave when you're scared, compassionate when you want to be cruel, and to rise once more after you fall. Myths are the toolbox for building that story. These narratives are not just the starting point of literature. They are the foundation of everything. Philosophy began as an attempt to rationalize myth. Science began as an attempt to explain the same phenomena that myth personified. They are the common ancestor of all our forms of knowledge. And here's the big secret, the most important idea of all. We are not mere spectators of these myths. We are their protagonists. Every day we make decisions and face challenges that place us in an archetypal role. You are the hero of your own epic, and the world is your mythical stage. The question isn't whether you have a myth, but what myth you are living. Are you living the tragedy of Sisyphus, feeling that your work is meaningless? Or the comedy of the trickster, challenging conventions? Or the drama of the hero, striving for a noble goal? Becoming aware of your myth is the first step toward changing it. The power of myth lies in its capacity to transform perception. An obstacle stops being a simple problem and becomes a dragon's trial. A mentor stops being just a good teacher and becomes your Obi-Wan. This imbues life with a layer of meaning, purpose, and adventure that daily routine often strips away. Don't underestimate the power of the story you tell yourself about your own life. That story largely determines your reality. Myths offer us the most powerful and time-tested templates for building a narrative that not only allows us to survive, but to thrive. Therefore, universal literature didn't begin with Homer or the Bible by chance. It began with myth because it is the most fundamental form of human thought. It is the language of the soul. And as long as humans continue to be born, love, struggle, and die, we will continue to need these stories to make sense of it all. In conclusion, myths are much more than mere stories. They are the echo of our ancestors, the map of our psyche, and the compass for our future. They are proof that, despite everything that separates us, we are united by an invisible thread, the thread of story. They are the secret code that, once deciphered, reveals the meaning of being human. I hope this journey into the foundations of literature and consciousness has been as fascinating for you as it has been for me. May it have given you a new lens through which to view the world and your own place in it. The stories we tell ourselves are the most powerful tool we have. Use it wisely. We've seen how myth explains the cosmos, how it organizes society, and how it guides the individual. We've unmasked the archetypal characters that live in our stories and in our minds. And we've confirmed that these structures are a global phenomenon, a true universal literature. The true legacy of these earliest literary works isn't in history books, but in your own life. In the decisions you make, in the fears you face, and in the dreams you pursue, you are the last link in a chain of storytellers that stretches back to the dawn of humanity. So the next time you need inspiration, look no further than these timeless tales. Hercules, Anansi, Ishtar, Thor. They are your narrative ancestors. Their strength, ingenuity, and resilience are part of your heritage. Claim it. Remember that you are not alone on your journey. You are walking a path that millions have trod before you. Their stories are beacons that illuminate the darkness, reminding you that even in the deepest night, the promise of dawn, the promise of a new story, is always present. I hope this exploration has whetted your appetite to learn more, to read the original myths, and to discover the stories that personally call to you. This is just the beginning of a much larger intellectual and personal adventure. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Your time and curiosity are the greatest gift. It has been a true honor to share these insights with such an intelligent and passionate community. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon so you don't miss our future journeys into the secrets of literature and history. Your support allows us to keep creating content like this. And now I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What's your favorite myth? Which archetype resonates most with you at this point in your life? Or what modern hero do you think best embodies the mythical journey? The conversation continues there. Until next time, curious minds,